Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Amy Natalie. Amy Natalie is here to empower women to embody their feminine leadership and most authentic self. The question she is asking is not centered around what do you need to achieve or produce, but rather who do you get to be to create the impact, success, relationships, and lifestyle of your dreams. Her formula of blending mindset, work, embodiment, and sisterhood into her coaching practice has inspired thousands of women to heal themselves and contribute their unique magic to the world. The containers she creates through coaching, masterminds, retreats, group programs, and courses are all invitations into the new paradigm of the feminine rising. Amy's work of empowering women to embody their feminine energy, to follow their soul's calling, and show up as their most fully expressed selves is a direct reflection of the personal development and spiritual journey she has been on herself. After going through a divorce at age 27, overcoming clinical depression, and traveling around the world, Amy broke free from her old identity, reconnected with her feminine energy, and stepped into her feminine leadership. Today, she is a multiple six-figure coach with one of the highest client retention rates in the industry and the host of the Feminine Frequency podcast with over 195K downloads. Today, we talked about shifting out of our masculine energy into our feminine, why embodiment is a pathway for feminine healing, and how to tune into the wisdom of your body, how sisterhood is medicine, and how to call in your community by healing your sisterhood wounds, what authentic freedom looks like, and how to step into your fully expressed and unapologetic self, what surrender truly means, and how to release the need to control your future, how to listen to your intuition, and inspired take action to create a life and business that is in alignment with your truth, and how to just fully step into the best version of yourself in your feminine energy. Thank you so much for bearing with me today. My voice is going. So without further ado, we're going to dive into this episode with Amy Natalie. I'm very excited to have Amy Natalie with us today on the Sisterhood of Sweat. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me here. I love the mission of your podcast and all of your message that you share with women. So I'm looking forward to contributing to your listeners.
Well, I'm really excited about the topic today about becoming our most authentic selves. And Amy, you had this whole journey kind of into female empowerment and using more of your feminine energy. And I would love for you to share with the listeners what that journey of self-discovery looked like and how it kind of brought you where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So prior to learning anything about self-discovery, spirituality, personal development, I found myself at 27 years old. I was married. We owned a house together. I had my own business, and everything on the outside of my life looked perfect. It looked like it was supposed to when we think about the traditional standards for success. And internally, my world looked very different. I was struggling with depression. I had a lot of chronic health issues, digestive issues, hormone imbalances. I had gained a lot of weight, and I was really struggling to figure out why I was so unhappy and really trying to get clear if the relationship that I was in, if that was really how it was supposed to be, or if that was really what I wanted for the rest of my life. So even though in my case, there wasn't anything specifically with regards to mental or physical abuse, there was something that felt like that was missing for me. And throughout this process of trying to figure out why was I so unhappy, at the time I owned a nutrition business and I was a health coach, and I was already on my path to being in service to others. And I really started to see that there were deeper layers underneath why people made certain decisions. What were some of the emotional underlying reasons why women were continuing to resort to emotional eating or on and off diets and not able to sustain them? And so it was through a combination of my own personal journey and through working with lots of women around their health that I realized that it really was the thoughts and the beliefs underneath those habits that was contributing to me creating the circumstances that were in my life, and also to continuing to stay stuck in the same patterns. So eventually I kind of hit my rock bottom. I had been to therapy. I had tried all of the different things, read all the personal development books, and I found myself in this place where I was just didn't know where to go next. I felt really stuck. I had the awareness of all of the things that I could be doing to support myself. I had the awareness that I wanted things to be different, but I still wasn't able to make a change. And I found myself one day in the bathtub, tears running down my face, exhausted from trying to figure out the answer, trying to look for the answers outside of me. And I had read in personal development books about this concept of surrendering, this concept of that there is a greater plan, that there is a higher power, that when we find ourselves in these places, these rock bottom moments, that we can actually turn to this higher power, whatever you want to call it, and ask for support and guidance. And I had never prayed before. I had never really actively communicated with the universe before, which is what I used to refer to it as. Now I don't mind using the word God or spirit or whatever. And it was in that moment where I really reached out for support. And I just said, I am so tired. I'm so done. Like, I need help. And I'm done trying to figure this out on my own. And for the first time, I really looked at, there has to be a reason why this is happening. There has to be a reason why I'm going through this process. I don't feel like I'm here to suffer or to struggle anymore. And from that moment, I started to experience different guidance and wisdom, and started to turn to a meditation practice, and started to get signs and clear messages that there was something bigger and better that I was meant for. And made the most challenging decision of my whole life. It was really not just about leaving my marriage, but it was about letting go of an old identity. It was about stepping into the unknown. It was leaving everything that I had built, that my family had wanted for me, and leaving a lifestyle that I thought was what I wanted at one point, and it was just really out of alignment. And so that was really the turning point for me, where I started to do the work that I do now, and shifted from my nutrition and health coaching into supporting women in more of a spiritual coaching, life coaching capacity, to make these bigger changes in their lives and to create a life that really is in alignment with their truth versus the programming and the expectations that society has for them.
I think that deep down, we know who we are here to be, and that a lot of the times we're just afraid to step into that authenticity, our authentic selves. And like when you're in the marriage, maybe you knew you weren't living up to the person that you were here to be. And I think there can be people, times, and places that can be holding us back from our greater purpose. And how did you then leave the marriage and recognize all this, leaving behind the old identity and stepping into the new identity, which really was probably the true identity?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I knew during my marriage, even before I got married, if I'm being, just really transparent, I knew that there were parts of the relationship that were not in alignment with who I really am, and where I felt there were certain parts of me and my soul that were being suppressed. And I didn't have words for that at the time. But I really, I'm a very sensitive person. I'm very deep. I really love authentic connections, and I love expressing myself. And I'm really passionate about personal growth and development. And while my former husband and I had similar interests, I think at the core essence of our values and who we are and what we wanted in life, there were a lot of differences. And if I stayed in that marriage, I would have been playing small. I would have been living a life that wasn't true to who I am at my core. And I would have continued to be unhappy and continue to have these symptoms that I was having. So, it wasn't an overnight decision. It took me about 3 years almost from the time that I initially recognized that something was off, that I wasn't quite sure that this was the direction that I wanted to go. And there was a lot of questioning myself, why can't I just be happy? What's wrong with me? Maybe I just think the grass is greener on the other side, and I have this fantasy illusion that life could be different. And maybe I'm just unhappy and it has nothing to do with the relationship. And really had to go through that process of going beyond my ego, going beyond that negative self-talk, going beyond this idea that I don't deserve more, or that maybe this is just as good as it's going to get. And really be an exploration of, what do I really want? It wasn't until that time in my life where I really started to ask, what do I want? What are the things that make me happy? What do I see for my future? What lights my soul up? What lights me up? And once I started asking those questions, I started realizing, oh, the current life that I'm living and the choices that I'm making aren't necessarily leading me in that direction. So it was first an acknowledgement of, what do I really want? If this isn't what I want, then what do I want? And then through that process of self-discovery, then recognizing this deep sense of learning a deep sense of self-trust. Because to make a decision like that, to make a decision that, where I was a people pleaser before. I wanted everyone to be happy with me.
I am thinking that the whole time, and you're
Yeah.
talking to one right here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to disappoint my parents. I don't want to disappoint my partner, who, we have a very caring and kind relationship, friendship, whatever you want to call it. I was very close with his family. Our community was very involved. And so, these decisions impact a lot of other people. And especially when you are someone who is caring and sensitive and empathic, it's like, I don't want to do anything to hurt other people. And I really had to get to that place where it was so painful for me to keep trying to make everyone else happy. And it was at the expense of my own well-being. My digestion was horrible. My skin was horrible. I had gained weight. I was unhappy. Like, I just really couldn't go on like that anymore. And so through cultivating a deeper sense of self-love, self-trust, self-worth, building my confidence, and also building my faith in the universe, and building my faith that there is something greater possible. And, that wasn't something that I grew up with, this connection with the universe. Right. So I think that one of the quotes that I really share is that when your faith is greater than your fear, anything is possible. And I really had to start to see, what were the fears? What were the doubts? What was the negative self-talk? What were the limiting beliefs that were keeping me stuck in the same patterns? And through discovering what those fears were, then also at the same time, strengthening my connection to to what's possible when we think outside of the box, right? And one of my favorite practices for that is a journaling practice called scripting, where you basically write about your future as if it's already happening. And so you just get creative. And if you don't know what you want for your
I love
future,
that.
yeah, if you don't know what you want for your future, you can look at other people who you admire, different role models, people whose lifestyles you aspire to, and you can say, these are the things that I desire, that I think, would bring me more joy, that feel true for me. And then you start writing about them as if they're happening. So I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm surrounded by like-minded people who are supportive and encouraging. I'm so happy and grateful now that I live in a beautiful home with natural lighting and plants everywhere around me. I'm so happy and grateful that I do what I love for work and I get paid well for it. I'm so happy and grateful that my health improves every single day and I have energy and I feel better and better. And so you start to kind of paint the picture of what would my life be like and how would that feel right now? Because when you can tap into, even it's almost retraining your subconscious mind of showing, it's hard to see in the moment if that's not your current reality, that's possible. But when you speak about it as if it's already happening, what you're doing is you're actually training your subconscious mind to see, oh, this is actually possible. And this feels really good. And how can I make this happen? What are the possibilities here? So I really did a lot of those practices to get clear on what I wanted and really starting to retrain my mindset of what was possible for me.
So, wow. So many thoughts are rolling through my mind. But first of all, I want to commend you on being so brave, because it's scary to face all of those things and make a change and leave something behind that is known for the unknown. It can be very scary. And I think not everybody will follow that same path of having to leave their marriage. A lot of times you may work on, okay, I'm people pleasing, I feel suppressed. Like, it's not really you being truthful when you say yes to something you want to say no to, or when you're dumbing down yourself instead of freely being who you are. And sometimes we have to change the deals that we've made with people. They're unspoken. And it can be hard because you get pushback when you start stepping into who you really authentically are. And a lot of times the relationship will dissolve, but sometimes you can make it through those tough waters. But I just think it was scary, the whole thing of having to leave everything you've known. But look at what you got on the other side of that. You stepped into who you really are, and you got clarity, and you've got purpose, and it seems to me to be so much more centered and happy. And I think asking ourselves those questions about, like, what, who could I be if I think sometimes you can be in a relationship where you're totally suppressed. Who you are really threatens who they are. They feel threatened by you being your real self. And that is a misalignment, totally. And so I had Terry Cole on the podcast recently from Boundary Boss. And she just says basically that when you are saying yes repeatedly to someone, or you're letting them override your boundaries or suppress you, dim your light, you're being dishonest. And I really chewed on that. I've really thought about that. And I really hope that brings some light to some people today about, are you being honest about who you truly are? And are you afraid in some way to be that? And the question I want to ask you, Natalie, I noticed that you talk about a lot of the times we're thinking about what we need to achieve. I'm a high achiever, so this would relate to me and a lot of my ladies on the show. We're worried about what we should achieve or produce, but you say, rather, who do you get to be Can you speak into that?
Yeah. So we grow up in a culture that is addicted to productivity, that is addicted to achievements and success. And more often than not, there's two paths that end up happening. Specifically, I would say for women, but this happens for men as well. Either we achieve, and we get to the place that we thought that we wanted. We reach a certain amount of money, we get married, we have kids, we get a certain promotion at work or a title at work. And then we get there and we realize, oh, this isn't what I thought it would be. I thought I would feel different. I thought that this would be different. I thought this would mean that I was worthier, or that I was going to be happier or feel more successful, but I just don't. And so that's one place that I find women who are in this overachieving, go, go, go mode. The other path is that on the way of trying to achieve, women end up getting burnt out. They feel exhausted, they feel run down, they feel disconnected, they have, anxiety and can't sleep well. And that's also a path that happens. And so for us as women specifically, we are naturally more of what I would call a feminine essenced being. It means that we have more feminine energy. And when we're operating too much in our masculine energy, which is that achieving, doing, performing, constantly planning, controlling, when it's out of balance, we're doing too much of that, we often feel very disconnected from ourselves, very unfulfilled, unhappy, unhealthy, unsatisfied. So when I say, who are you being? It's really about, the journey to getting to that achievement. And are you enjoying your life? Are you experiencing deep, authentic connection? Are you having fun? Are you experiencing pleasure? We came here to, I believe that we all came here, our souls, and we came here on this planet to not just go through the motions and to not just rack up all these accolades and material things. And while those things are great, there's nothing wrong with them. There's a deeper desire that all of us have for meaning, for purpose, for joy, for connection. And I find that when we bring more of this feminine energy into our life, which means connection to self, connection to life force energy, connection to your heart, to who you really are, along with the masculine energy, where then you're sharing your creative gifts, or you're putting yourself out there and you're taking action. When we have a balance between those two, that's really where we thrive. That's really where we get to experience, still reaching our goals, but doing it in a way that actually feels really nourishing and really good. So that's the perspective that I have. And I know a lot of people use the word balance. You could call it balance. I like to call it harmony, really honoring these different parts of ourselves, because ultimately everyone wants to be happy. They want to be healthy. They want to be successful. And I feel like this piece is often a missing link for women and men when it comes to how we navigate through life.
I love that. That was beautiful. And I really do think when we are more truly who we were created to be, and we're not dimming that down, we're going to attract what is in alignment with us, what is authentic and true for us. And I love how you brought that out today, and how you're helping women to step into that. What does authentic freedom look like, and how can we access it through being in this alignment, being fully expressed, and being our unapologetic self?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To me, freedom is about being who you really are, because it is so exhausting constantly thinking about, what are they going to think about me? Should I say this? Should I not say this? Should I behave this way? Should I make this decision, how is this going to look for everyone else? It's this exhaustion that I used to experience all of the time, that whether you call it people pleasing or perfectionism, or, trying to fit in and wanting everyone to like and accept you, it's exhausting. And what I've found is that when we are able to be our authentic self and be who we really are, we are far more magnetic. We are far more likely to attract like you mentioned, the type of people who really get us, who really understand us, who appreciate us for who we are. There's no like that surface level connection where everyone's just being nice, but maybe gossiping in the background, or where there's judgment and things like that. And you can really start to cultivate these authentic relationships that feel safe and supportive. And so freedom to be yourself is not about, it doesn't look one way. So if you're not a super colorful, loud, expressive person, that's not what I'm talking about. You don't need to be like someone else's expression, right? It's actually about being your own expression, not holding back, I think part of freedom to be yourself is also freedom to share authentically where you're at. So if you're having a hard day or something's going on in your life, is not having to pretend all the time that everything's okay, not saying I'm fine, I'm good, don't worry about me, everything's great. And really being willing to be seen, being willing to say, actually, I am having a hard day today, and there's some challenges that are happening, and not from a place of, complaining or being in victim mode, but really from an authentic, like, hey, being human is hard sometimes, and challenges come up, and I'm having that experience right now, and through that there's so much freedom of just being you, and not having to try and hide or perform in any certain way. And I find that to me, that's what true freedom looks like.
And I love that so much. Not, like I grew up, having to pretend everything was perfect on the outside while everything was falling apart on the inside. So I really think that might be a lot of our listeners as well. And what draws people to you really is not your perfect self, it's your real self.
Mhm.
And being able to accept yourself first enables everybody else to then accept you and your love for your imperfections, not for your perfect version of who you think you should be. It's who you really are. And so I love how you put that. What do you think that surrender truly means? Like you were talking earlier, that you just surrendered. And I love that. And I also believe in a higher power. I call the higher power God. And so what do you think that surrender truly means? And how can we release the need to control everything in our future?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite conversations. And honestly, surrender is such an ongoing practice. It's not just this, okay, I figured it out, I get it, I've done it one time. It really is the process of trusting in life. So a lot of people will think that surrender means to give up or to give in. That's an old terminology, or the definition of surrender might look that way. And I believe that surrender is trusting in something greater, trusting that there is a bigger plan, trusting that we're always being supported and guided by something that we can't see or touch, but really that as humans, we have an illusion that we are in control. And that comes from our ego. Our ego likes to think that we know everything, that if we make a plan, that it's going to prevent us from having any challenges, any problems. That when we have everything perfectly planned out, that nothing can go wrong. And the truth is that that's not the case with life. Everything is always changing. Everything is always evolving. And I see this in relationships, in friendships, in business, in careers. When we try and grasp on to the way that things are, when we hold on white knuckle clawing to the things that once were because we're afraid of them changing, that creates misalignment in our life. And that keeps us stuck, where it's almost like, I kind of feel like it's like this heavy backpack that you're carrying, and it weighs you down because you're trying to control it. Usually when someone's out of alignment, or when they're grasping or not willing to let go of something, that's really where a lot of the anxiety and depression and certain emotions that can come up, stress, overwhelm, because you're trying to stay in the same box or the same reality, when your soul or when your authentic self wants to grow and evolve. And sometimes those things can evolve with you. Like you mentioned before, you don't always have to quit your job or, get out of a relationship or make a drastic change. Sometimes, on the other hand, there are other times where releasing those things, letting them go, trusting that by letting them go, you are creating space for what is meant for you, what is in the greater plan, what is in alignment for you. And the scariest part is the letting go. It's our mind feels sometimes like it almost feels like you might die, or like you can't go on, that feeling maybe after a breakup or something like that, where you're just like, I can't possibly survive this, or and it's a daily practice of trusting that in releasing whatever it is that you're holding on to, that you are creating space, that there are new experiences, new opportunities that are coming your way. And when we live from that place of trust and surrender, and we stop trying to control everything, we face a lot less resistance. There's more flow, there's more ease, there's more alignment, there's more attraction that can happen because we are in the flow, versus that grasping and that holding on to what once was in the past.
And people pleasing really is all about you trying to control. And so I love that you put that out there with the trust and surrender, because when we are surrendering, we are trusting. And I really believe what is for you will come to you. And I like how you said that about the white knuckling, because I can see myself sometimes when I either wanted something so bad or didn't want to let go of something so bad, just forcing it to happen, or white knuckling. So I really like that visual, because I think people can relate to that today. And so I really like what you said about trust, and that was in our surrendering. Like, when you are trying to make something happen, maybe it really isn't supposed to happen. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe something better could be
Yeah.
happening if you would just let that go and just surrender. So I love that so much. I want to kind of dive into one of your real strong suits today. And we'll kind of dovetail it with female leadership. But I want to start out asking, in this world right now, there's a lot of confusion about what a woman is, what a man is, feminine energy, masculine energy. But as a female today, how can we shift out of masculine energy, which was that driving, achieving, controlling, all of that, and invite in more of our feminine energy into our business, our relationships, and our everyday life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big conversation because there's so many different layers to it. And I think part of it is unpacking and identifying what are the stories, what is the programming that causes you to act in that way in the first place. So part of it is really recognizing that you are worthy right now, regardless of how much money you make, regardless of how you look, regardless of how many friends you have or followers you have, is really recognizing that you have an innate worthiness and you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to look a certain way. You don't need to act a certain way or be a certain way in order to be good enough. And that really is an inner journey of acknowledging you as a person and recognizing your innate value that you bring to the world. And so until we can really get to the root of that, of recognizing that, I don't need to make a certain amount of money. I might want to, and I'm not saying you shouldn't want that, but is it coming from a healthy place, or is it coming from trying to prove yourself to other people? So recognizing things like that. We also want to recognize the programming that we've been taught around hustle culture, is that this idea that if you're not working, if you're not productive, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to achieve anything. You're not going to accomplish anything, live up to anything. And the reality is that hustle culture is actually what creates the burnout. It's what if you're constantly going all the time, it doesn't mean you're doing the best job when you're actually working. It just means busyness, and it means this false sense of productivity. But are you actually being productive? Or if you were to let yourself rest and really listen to your body and honor what you need, would you actually be more creative? Would you be able to have more energy to give to the things that you want to put effort into? And so we have this cultural subconscious programming that doesn't actually make sense, and we have to take a look at these programs that we have. And the other piece, which we've been talking about, is this idea that a woman needs to look or act or behave a certain way in order to be loved, admired, accepted, and she needs to be put together. She needs to be perfect all the time. She needs to be a certain weight. Like, it's so exhausting to keep trying to live up to these societal norms and ideals that are really not realistic across the board, that we're supposed to be, a good housewife, supposed to be good in bed. We're supposed to make money. We're supposed to, be happy all the time. Like, it's exhausting. So the first layer is really unpacking what are all of these unconscious programs that are driving the behavior in the first place. And if you're happy operating that way and things are working out for you, like, good for you. Like, you don't need to change anything. But if you're in that hustle mode and you're constantly thinking, planning, stressing, overworked, overwhelmed, then there's an opportunity here to see, is there a different way of doing things? Do I have to subscribe to this patriarchal, or do I have to subscribe to this, modern, busy lifestyle that I've thought that I needed to? Once we've unpacked some of the mindset stuff, then it is going to, okay, how can I nourish myself? How can I take care of myself? How can I choose to spend my time in a way that brings me energy, that makes me feel alive, that turns me on, that brings me joy, that makes my life feel good? And I think so often we're used to ignoring what actually feels good for me. What feels good when it comes to my exercise? What feels good when it comes to what I want to eat? What feels good when it comes to how I spend my time on the weekends, right? We don't really check in with what feels good. And that's really, our body tells us that. Our body can give us that information when we slow down to listen to that. And that's another piece that I really like to look at when it comes to making this shift. So the last piece that I'll share here for now is that, when we're in that masculine mode of being, it's in the mind, we're thinking a lot. The feminine lives in the body. And whatever we can do to kind of just slow down and to connect with our body, whether that is yoga or meditation or breathing or walking out in nature or dancing, whatever your version of that is that helps you to get into your body and to calm your nervous system down, that's where you're going to find a lot of the answers. I don't have all the answers for you of what's going to make you happy and how everything's going to work out, but I can teach you how to listen to your own intuition and your own inner guidance of what feels right for you and what is right for you. And part of that is through these embodiment practices.
And I really love what you said about what is right for you. And also, not always, everything is not always achieved in the busy, busy, busy. I find more when I say, get my ego out of the way and say, who can I invite into my vision that could be teaching this class today, that could be doing graphics for me, or editing my podcast, or doing emails that they're so much better at. What am I great at that I thrive on? And how can I take a few things off my plate? Because when you're overloaded, you cannot show up energetically for anything really. And you want to be able to show up at your best self when you are showing up. So I think today, just thinking about what feels great to me, what kind of things can I take off my plate instead of adding on my plate? Because most women already have more than enough on their plate, because we're like overachievers and we're always thinking about how we appear to others and what we need to do to be perfect. And we're not giving ourselves any grace or any space for the creative feminine energy to come in. So I love what you said today, all about that. And I would be amiss today if I didn't touch on sisterhood, since this is a sisterhood and we are a community of strong sisters. Why do you think being in a sisterhood is like medicine? And how can we call in our sisters in our community to help heal our wounds?
Yeah, sisterhood is such a sweet conversation, and it is something that many women, until they're on this path of self-discovery and being their authentic self, it's something that can feel really challenging. And I know for me growing up, I didn't have the types of relationship with women that I wanted. And a lot of that was because of my own jealousy or comparison. And a lot of the ways that we're taught as women to relate to each other are not actually supportive and healthy. There's a lot of gossip, there's a lot of judgment. And so we all have these sisterhood wounds, these experiences with other women where we have felt let down or felt like we can't trust someone. And sisterhood to me is different than friendship. Sisterhood is really a dynamic between two women where the intention is to support and love one another unconditionally, and to communicate authentically, to share if something is bothering you, to be honest if something doesn't feel right. And we're not meant to do this alone. This journey of life, I think about this a lot. There are so many challenges that come our way. There's a lot of things that we're navigating, and we all have different gifts to provide. We all have different strengths and different things that we're good at, and different ways that we can support one another and lift each other up. And so when we're going through good times, it's really beautiful to have other people to celebrate it with, other people who are going to be just as excited with you to celebrate you, instead of being jealous and kind of tearing you down or whatever happens, right? Unsupportive. And sisterhood is really also there for the times that where things are challenging, and you can keep it real and be like, hey, like, this thing's going on in my life. And other women can be like, oh, I've experienced that challenge too, and here's what worked for me. Or I'm just going to listen to you and be here to support you. I don't even need to add something to help you to figure it out. But really that support network that we all deserve. We all deserve and that we all desire, because we're not meant to do it alone, regardless of whether you're introverted or extroverted or whatever your personality type is that, we're meant to grow in community. We're meant to support one another.
And I absolutely loved your definition of sisterhood. I just about cried because it's so right on what I've tried to create with the Sisterhood of Sweat. And it's what this community is, and what it's all about is supporting each other and having each other's back. And you put it so beautifully today. And I have so enjoyed everything that you've shared. And you were a trooper with me and my cough drops and my my voice today. But I really appreciate everything that you've brought today. It was so empowering, and just, I can tell you've been on the journey, and you have something for the audience today. Can you tell us about that and where we can reach you on social media?
Yeah, I would love to. So I have a free 20-minute guided audio, which is designed to be a morning ritual. So a lot of women will ask me, where do I start when it comes to connecting with my feminine energy? How can I be more of my authentic self? And so I created this audio guide that you can listen to in the morning, and it walks you through a practice of feeling more embodied, connecting to your body, and then also to feel empowered throughout your day. So that's something that I'm gifting you. You can find the link. I think they'll include it in the show notes. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Amy Natalie Co. I share lots of wisdom there, and on my podcast, the Feminine Frequency Podcast.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on today. And everybody, make sure to check out those links. I'll leave them in the show notes. And as always, keep on keeping on, everyone.